AlienCarvings.com presents Anunakki and Tula, the Lost American Civilization. We thank you for joining us out here in the wonderful landscape of Tula Hidalgo. Join us as we journey around the grounds where Max and his family have resided for hundreds of years. Near the sacred sites of Tula, the surrounding hills and fields tell a very different story than what we may have previously understood. When we first saw the depictions of these items, we thought it was all aliens and sci-fi. However, the complex language, beings in fish suits, giants, angelic, aquatic, Egyptian, Sumerian, Indus Valley, Lakota, Mayan, a synergy of the world's cultures all tied into one. Could the story of the Tower of Babel be true? The complex languages we find here on these items are consistent and very, very intricate. Thousands of symbols, some representing cuneiform, Egyptian hieroglyphics, Proto-Sinaitic languages from Canaan. We will adventure, though, a prospected site where underground anomalies showed up upon scanning with ground-penetrating radar and georadar. As a child in the middle of the 20th century, the landowner and his father would till the fields. They would find these objects. His father warned him of these pieces, and they would often bury them back. Eventually, they started giving them to the Ainach when the government stepped in with UNESCO in 1967. Not knowing about Egyptian or Sumerian culture, it took some time before the relation would be made. The fact none of these items ever ended up in the museum became very strange. Asking with little to no response, the frustration grew. After reading the letter from the Ainach saying these items had to be modernly made and they were not authentic history, they contest that this is not true and have invited us to prove it. So sit back and relax while we show you some of the caves, items, and overall dig areas in which these items are being found. We will explore the 16-foot dig levels and the many petroglyphs contained within.
When I first met Max, I'd seen a picture of him. It was on Facebook, and he was blowing in one of the carved seashells that are found in Tula. I had seen a couple of these seashells around as I was starting to research the pieces in Abuelo Stilisco. And I reached out to this guy because I knew he had to know more, and he was carrying it around town. There were pictures and video of him dressed up in Toltec attire, doing sacred dances and ceremonies around the altars in Tula. Talking to Max is like talking to family. It was very, very good to be able to ask questions and get an honest response. Little did I know when he called me nephew that day just how much my life would change because of Max. The truth became a thorn in my side, and the process to feel confident in my beliefs became a vertical climb that I had no idea I was about to embark on. Watching Max clear the ground, he makes it look so easy. It's not. The ground in Tula is definitely a very muddy and silty type of a dirt. It's not like you would find in Egypt where it's a rock packed in the same aspect. But still, you can totally see that this rock's been here for a minute, and what he's clearing through has been scanned in previous sessions during the Gen 6 documentary, and they actually have quite a few places that are marked for future digs. It's really interesting to see and watch the unfolding of this, as I've seen it from before Gen 6 even made touchdown in Tula for the first time. And so seeing from what this has come from to what it is now, the people that are involved, how many people are involved, the day after day excitement of the littlest things to the biggest things, and every step of the way having it documented and tracked. As you can see on our website, AlienCarvings.com, as well as our social media, We've been posting about this for years and trying to inform and spread awareness to get the proper credentials and the proper people down in front of this site to confirm what we're finding and what we're seeing. As it's said by the INAH, this is all something that has to have been modernly dug and modernly put here. And these items can't be authentic because there's nothing like this that they've ever seen before. This is what the letter states in 2014. And so there is no aliens or UFOs in the eyes of the government or in the eyes of modern science at this point in time. And I feel that's kind of why we see a lot of the resistance with the Nazca mummies as well in a similar fashion. I feel both of these are connected in every way, and once one leads, the other will follow. And hopefully, as we continue to research and understand, we'll get a large wealth of information before it's too late. As we uncover the dirt, a portal made of intricately carved limestone emerges, evoking imagery of maybe the Ajiji or a direct relationship to the Anunnaki. These elongated head, winged beings, reminiscent of those found in many of the Tula carvings, bear a striking resemblance to what the Ajiji are described as in the ancient tablets. This complex-looking portal features a fluorite lens. Akin to the high-quality optics used in today's telescopes, this discovery is truly unique, and if verified true, will make a dramatic impact on the understanding of our historical past. Now that this piece has been unearthed, let's go ahead and cleanse the energy of the area and move on to the next. It often makes us wonder what the purpose of these items were, who made them. We do, however, see symbols that are the same and different patterns and things that resemble the languages that we know today or that we know of today. And that makes it somewhat understandable, at least to where we have a good idea that in many cases these pieces seem to be testification to their god, possibly idols of worship. And that's something we see across the board between Abuelos and Tula, even though the art and the iconography is completely different between the two. You can see here that the variants of objects in the carvings department go from unique objects to functional carts, to obelisks, pyramids, crystals. This griffin cart is really interesting. One of the first few pieces that we've ever seen with a moving wheel. Speaking of wheels, the wheels within a wheels, very akin to the Ezekiel book of the apocryphal texts, the non-canonical Bible. Showing these beings is very common with the scales. Tula actually means scale. And so the balance of things is something we see often depicted. We've even found actual functional scales. Yes, also carved of limestone. The balance of Tula isn't just a balance of things, but of good, of evil. It seemed like a space of death and rebirth. We see a lot of skulls and sacrifice, things of that nature here. This is the refuse pile that they've taken out of digging these holes. They're 16 feet in the ground. You can see all the rocks and dirt. These guys work, there's about 20 of them through the nights. They're going at this all the time, constantly reporting back, showing me what they're digging, what they found. They found a total of 3 tunnels already. I'm going to be showing you 2 of them. This one here, you can see the petroglyphs on the wall are clearly, they look like aliens to what we know. You know, they use excavators coupled with GPR to find and dig these holes. There's often pieces up above. You can see the box here in the excavator bucket that's moving out of the ground. This is a box that we have here that's got the Pharaoh and Anubis on the front of it. You can see this hole here is 16 feet in the ground and clearly has a alien pointing into the hole. Inside of here, numerous pieces have been found, including a Sumerian ziggurat, Sumerian Egyptian bent-necked staffs, Sumerian pine cones, sundial wristwatches, sacrum made of bone, different animals, seemingly some cut. You can see there at the top of this video there's a block that's like being held in the ground, and we believe that's sign of some sort of cataclysm or something that occurred in this area that trapped that there at one point or another. You can see a closer view here of the one of the pieces that have been pulled out of here. And as we go down in this tunnel, you know, these petroglyphs are pretty amazing how they're put into the rock. It's definitely not your typical, you know, chisel and make it look good, you know, on a reproduction. Like these are something that have been really formed into the bedrock, and yeah, it's definitely something that's been there for a while. There's a lot of buildup and sediment and the proper dusts and everything you would want to see on these petroglyphs. They've been confirmed by a few parties that have come down, archaeologists, geologists. It's pretty interesting to see the vast amount of depictions and how similar they are to the pieces that we have been finding and studying and documenting for the last few years. Seeing this at the 16-foot dig level was really what coupled me to go and try to make these books and documentaries to really get this in writing, because I felt that you know, it's not being covered the way it should be right now, likely due to ignorance. And you know, ignorance is bliss in some aspects, but documentation is really important. The amount of passion that Arturo and his team have put into this dig and you know, recording this site and giving us the opportunity to present this to you has been something that we cannot thank enough. You know, it took a lot of tough love and going back and forth about things being real and not to convince me, you know, that this was actually something of legitimacy. And you know, he went to every extent that we pleaded and begged. You know, we begged these guys to do this essentially because we didn't believe it. We thought, yeah, right, you know, this will never happen. We wanted to see the petroglyphs. We wanted to see the GPR scans. We wanted to document this, you know, with a GoPro and with proper cameras and you know, all the things that seem to be missing from the story when these guys would find these objects and bring these objects to the public, and they would be turned down and dismissed as fakes repeatedly. And you know, now we're seeing the evidence is pretty amazing. I mean, for someone to conceive this just as a hoax is absolutely yeah, I would almost be more astonished if that was the case than I am astonished that this is real, which is astonishing. It's funny, after a while, the sound of shovels hitting the rock becomes almost meditative and therapeutic. You know, it's something it's hard to put down, and that's on more levels than one. You know, we've handled more than 3,000 of these pieces over the last 5 years photographing, documenting, researching, studying, trying to understand. So the addiction of this story and trying to make sense of it is absolutely something that you just can't put it down, because I've wondered my whole entire life some of these questions that I never even had a real glimpse into outside of books and ancient texts. And so to see pictures and ideograms and things that were described in these ancient texts put into detail and to perspective that we've always tried to imagine but never been able to put a picture to. I always wondered why all the walls in Egypt and certain sites in Mexico and Sumeria, there was chunks of the walls completely deliberately taken out, and there was this war of knowledge and persecution of the Christians and the Coptics and all this, what formulated our Bible and religion today. And it's very, very fascinating to see a full circle of data that could actually put the dots together that we've been missing for thousands of years. It's really quite shocking to see Egyptian artifacts coming out of the ground in Mexico. It took me quite a minute to grasp this concept of how this is even possible. I've heard some conspiracy and talks of theories that resembled something of this nature in the Grand Canyon and the stuff you see on the internet, of course, but there was a couple things that really resonate with me in terms of logic, and that was the two pyramid complexes, two of the greatest pyramids, if not the greatest pyramids on the planet. And both of them are in an alignment and in a showcase that would be very similar to each other, and also very similar to the constellation in the Orion's Belt area. And so this arrangement is something that could be a coincidence, and it could be a precisely calibrated thing. There's a lot of mathematical formulas that you can arrange to the pyramids and to the things that people have spent a lot of time trying to articulate and understand. Some of it could be chasing a ghost. Some of it could be pretty ridiculous coincidence, I guess you could say. And it's one thing to have these foundations being built. I think is the pyramids, that's a whole thing. People argue how they're built, but the foundation is really what fascinates me, and the fact that it's so perfectly aligned with the true north, and the stability lasting through who knows what, earthquake wise, volcano wise, possible meteor comet impacts. I mean, the torrential surface of the face of this earth is a story in itself. And so I think it's really important that we analyze that these two complexes are something that we know very little about how they were constructed and why. There's conception in Egypt that they were built as tombs, but the lack of all the things that we would see in an Egyptian tomb are not there. It's not designed like the Egyptian tombs we found, and it just really doesn't make a lot of sense that that's what these items were used for, especially considering the complex vents and different passages, the way certain rooms were built with specific stone arrangements, and or even in one piece of stone, some equating to some hundreds of tons raised up in an elevation inside of this pyramid that one would only think that they could build around this piece of granite, not necessarily lift it into place. So there's a lot of mysteries that still go unanswered, and there's a lot of theory of industrial complex and use of these pyramids as machinery. And this was something that I didn't really follow too hard on. I'd heard Dunn's theory a bit and things of that nature, but to really get in deep with it and to see some of these things in the mechanical fashion, and some of the combinations of materials that they found in the dusts and inside the chamber walls, it's obvious to me that there was more to the story in terms of what we're seeing and what we're trying to find. And the fact is that the combinations of minerals and the way that these things were and how thick of dust it was, definitely say that there could have been a product of energy or some sort of conversion taking place inside of this pyramid. And what's really fascinating is that we have multiple pieces from Mexico that we've unearthed that just show the exact thing that these people are theorizing in a alchemical fashion. And the amount of alchemy and things that we see related to that topic, sigils and symbols, is alarming at the minimum in respects. We definitely have a lot to learn when it comes to alchemy, and this is something that goes back in age-old to ancient times. So it's really interesting that we still chase this understanding of how to convert and change our elements from one to the other. At the end of the day, when you break it down, it really changes everything when you can convert elements at will. I think with advancements in science like the Large Hadron Collider, we're starting to understand more and more of how light and matter and things work on the level of physics and the overall construction of elements themselves. As they search for the God particle and how the universe works, I feel that it's all in some realities connected, and we'll start to understand this more complex and advanced science as we start to understand our ancient past. I still can't help but question all of this, and there's still something inside of me that says to pursue the mystery, even though I have a good probable prospect on the truth. It's something I can't help but question. It's such a large thing to accept. It's just going to require so much evidence. I didn't understand why DNA and carbon dating and these things weren't good enough for the Nazca mummies to be validified as authentic. And even with high-end PhDs from Peru, from America, even with them saying that these are biological specimens, I still haven't heard on ABC or NBC news stations that's a confirmed thing. And I think again it's because we have a need for an extensive amount of proof. With a topic like this, disclosure is blown into a whole nother proportion of what it actually is, and disclosure may not just be aliens and UFOs, but it may connect to the spiritual and religious level, and also on a technological level, as well as a purpose level and origin level that will affect us dramatically to understand and to live up to possibly new expectations, or transition to be able to live with one another, knowing maybe that some of the things that we did or lived by or were told, maybe things got twisted and were used against people. That there's so many plausibilities of what disclosure really means, and why it's such a top secret topic at the government level. It's such a matter of national security, and for some reason inside, I don't think intelligent life is necessarily the end-all be-all unless there's more to the story. And now with people and whistleblowers coming out stating that they've reverse engineered crafts and found live beings, I feel that there's probably some sort of connection there in terms of maybe knowing too much, and when I say knowing too much, I mean that the government maybe has more that they know than what we're capable of accepting. And that might be something that they've researched heavily to try to figure out a way to give us this knowledge without destroying us. And that might be a real form factor for our future, depending on what we find out about these items and the overall consensus of UFOs and intelligent life beyond our current Homo sapien. Using the Neanderthal as an example, you can see that there's been what appears to be large die-offs and an interchange of different species that we have documented in the fossil record. What's an interesting concept to me is okay, with the fossil record, we may only have a small percentage of what was actually there, and so a lot of the things may be long gone by now. So this fossilization requirement is something that requires specific conditions and so on and so forth to occur. And so in some cases we have that, but how many species, how many things are we missing from this that completely abstract what existed and what went on before? If there was a catastrophic flood that put hundreds of feet of dirt over the top of an entire continent, then there might be a lot of stuff that we've yet to unbury that could still be hidden far below. And so just because we have fossilized remnants from that era somewhere else doesn't mean that we've dug deep enough in this area specifically. And as you can see with these digs here that we're showing, some of them go to the 16-foot dig level, some of them are near the surface. And that's the case across Tula, depending on where you go. As you saw, the guys hiked up the side of a mountain here, and the mountain is a great place to dig because it's often not as deep. And so there's a real consistency with the plausibility of there being a flood or some sort of catastrophic cataclysm that brought all this earth and dirt and debris on top of these objects and pushed it into these caves and covered up so much of these monuments. If you look at Teotihuacan and Chichen Itza, when they were found, they were covered in dirt. So this theory shouldn't be that illogical. They say the jungle swallows everything, but dirt all the way up to a top of a very tall pyramid seems pretty unlikely. And it actually didn't go all the way up there, but it was darn close on a lot of these monuments and different things. So even in Egypt, when the Sphinx was found, it was covered, and a lot of these things lay in ruins. And so there's definitely, it seems like something that happened at some point that eliminated at least the most advanced civilizations that we had at the time. I absolutely want to thank Max and everybody involved, Lalo, Pato, Julio, everybody that's working down there, Arturio and his entire team, David. There's so many really great people who have helped on this and contributed to this. That's just, it's a beautiful thing of humans coming together for the greater of what's right and the truth in general. Something that we've been missing maybe our entire existence. And there's prophecies and biblical scriptures and things that mention just this sort of thing happening someday, and to think that it could happen to our generation and this might be it is still something that I have to really chew on. It's hard to accept that's the case, and I really hope that the research and people take this seriously enough to at least go down there and validify whether this is a real thing, and it needs to be non-biased, non-funded UNESCO university, like not your standard verification. Like, real people need to go down there, like a jury, and from maybe different countries. Like, it needs to be something that it is something that's never been done before, because right now, they've kept this a secret, it seems like, for 3,000 plus years, if this is true. And this could be a huge reason why we've had many wars and many things occur due to this truth. You look at the natives and all the crusades and conquistadors and things that have happened in our history, and it's all against this pagan uprising that seemed to occur, and all these things were pushed by religion, and so you see this in these images and the things that it talks about. This could absolutely be that uprising and evidence of that uprising, which really gives some homage to some of these stories being possibly accurate, and some of this mythology might actually be real. I always asked when I was a kid, like, what happened to magic, Mom? Why do all these stories talk about ancient Greece and magic and scepters and blah blah blah? I couldn't understand that as a child, but seeing all this now, it really brings a light of plausibility of what happened with divine intervention and alchemy and magic maybe losing its power due to possibly the pyramids. You look at Nikola Tesla's work and how that became an object of national security as well, and what he was researching in terms of wireless energy. He may have understood how these pyramids worked and been able to replicate the way they created the ability for these entities or beings or species that lived at this time to be able to conduct alchemy and gathering energy and doing all these things metaphysically that we find now as to be mythology or fiction, even though we have remnants and traces with spell books and certain things of sigils and all this history regarding these topics, and so it might make sense why there was a dramatic shift in the divine intervention and getting rid of all this. Maybe now we're mature enough to understand, or for whatever purpose, I don't know. But I'm very thankful to at least have a glimmer of plausibility into what we might be here for. And again, I just can't thank everybody who's helped me put this together. If you're interested in more information on this topic, we have 3 books that we've published. You can find them on Amazon by searching Michael Forrest. On to the next one. See you guys next time.